You guys are in for a treat today. How many people have been here at least one Sunday this month? At least one Sunday? Oh, okay, good. Okay, so this month we've been talking about addressing the mess. If you know what I'm talking about, just nod so I know that you're understanding what I'm saying. All right, so the first week, PYem talked about how to identify what the mess is, right? He talked about introducing light, creating boundaries, and making room for God to work. Do we all remember that? Good. The second week, he went on to talk about how to look at the mess in the mirror. And the mess in the mirror was us, right? He talked about making it personal, evaluating the cost, serving faithfully, and sowing sacrificially. All this month was about the mess. And so when he asked me to take over this service today, you know, I told him I thought he did a wonderful job capturing, addressing the mess already, right? He did a great job. I think the two services were on point. He did an amazing job. But I said the one thing we could add is to make it personal, right? And to make it more practical. How does addressing the mess relate to our place of work, our schooling, academics, right? And our relationships. So we decided to do a candid conversation. So welcome to Candid Conversations, everybody. Okay. So we have three amazing people that are going to be having conversations with me today, and I'm so excited to introduce each and every one of them, and I want you guys to get excited with me. Some of them you know, one or two you may not, but it's okay. Everybody's family today, okay? The first person I'd like to welcome to Candid Conversation is Dr. Tosin Olokun, also known as Dr. O. She's the founder and CEO of Dr. O Juice. If you follow her on Instagram, you know she's serious about Dr. O Juice, and it actually tastes really well. She has several degrees. Go ahead, take a seat. She has several degrees behind her name. She has MHA, an MBA, a PhD. The list goes on and on and on, and that's why we call her Dr. O. Not only is she smart, Dr. O has been able to go through school with $0 in loans. And even though she had a few milestones and roadblocks, which we're going to talk about today, she was able to do it, and she's transformed what she learned over the several years of schooling, and she's still in school right now for another degree or certification because she's a forever student, but that's good. She's going to talk about, you know, how all of that came together to even get her to her passion of Dr. O's Juice. So let's give Dr. O a round of applause. Next, we have Dr. Makiva Roden. Can we give her a round of applause? Dr. Roden is a professional. We work together. She's an amazing wife. She has an amazing husband, Steve Roden, and she's a mother to two children, Simeon and Steven. She's worked in public health for over 16 years. Come on. We actually worked together. She's a member of the Spirit of Christ Baptist Church and is focused on Christian education. She loves the Lord. She's so happy to be here. And I didn't tell her this, but Makiva and I work together, and we sit in several meetings together. We're both leaders in our place of work, and a lot of times we're the only two people of color, and we're women, in our meetings. But Makiva is such a general. Like when she speaks and she says things, everybody in the room falls in line. Don't let her smile fool you. She is very diligent, but everything that comes out of her mouth has a baseline of Christianity. And people don't even realize that she's ministering to them when she's telling her to operate in excellence, when she's telling people how we have to be obedient. So I'm just excited to have Makiva here, and I know she's going to be a blessing to everyone. So let's give Makiva a round of applause. Next, we have Mrs. Bimba Okupe. So, Bing Ball has such an amazing story, and I'm not going to tell too much about it because I want her to share it. But she has such a warm heart. She prides herself on being relatively open. She can talk about anything, everything, and to anybody. That's how open she is. She's about making sure, people understand her journey and people see the good, the bad, the ugly. And her aim is for people to grow in knowing God, sometimes through her experiences and sometimes through experiences of other people. So let's give Bimbo a round of applause. Whew. Okay. Thank you all for coming today. Welcome to Candid Conversations. So the goal for today is for us to bring all of the things we've learned this month and make it practical. And each of you have individual practical stories that I want you to share. If you could, for just 2 minutes, just share. Yeah, Tosin's laughing because she can share for 20 minutes if I don't stop her. But if you could just share your story, Tosin, as it relates to academics, I think that'll be a blessing, and then we'll go down the line with everyone else.
Good afternoon. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock, so 1:02 I'll be done. Okay, so I started off at the Ohio State University. I did a Bachelor of Science in Human Development. However, I changed my major 5 times. But I still managed to graduate in the 4.5 years. However, the reason it took me so long is because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Because when you go to college, people say, do this, do medicine, do nursing, or do pharmacy, or I don't know, do communications, but you have to figure out what you actually want. So then after I graduated from Ohio State University, then I got accepted into a dual master's program at University of Maryland. So then that's where I was studying my MBA and my MHA's Master in Health Administration and Business. So after that, I thought I was done. I'm going to start my career. So I started working at GW, Center for Integrative Medicine, and I was just like managing the suppository, medication, etc. But then I had a mentor who was the medical director, and I was like, if you actually study medicine, then you'll know more about this field. You know the business side and also the practical side of everything. So then I was like, okay, I don't want to go to medical school because that's going to be 4 years, and I've already been in school for like 6 years. So I'm like, what do you think I should do? He said you should apply to a PA program, which is physician assistant. That is basically medical school in steroids. You're learning everything, blood groups, you're learning internal medicine, dermatology, everything in 2 years versus the 4 years that medical student does. So I went to, all my sciences expired because after like 5 years your sciences expired, so I had to take all my sciences again at a community college, and then I was able to get acceptance into Howard University's PA program. So HU, okay, but you don't know it. You don't know it. This is the beginning of my drama. Okay, so I got into Howard. I really loved it. I loved seeing people like me because at Ohio State it was 5% Black people. I loved seeing people like me that were doing things, and it motivated me. However, my final year of PA school, my school lost accreditation. Oh, I know. So I was like, that was like the lowest point in my life. I was depressed. I'm like, man, this is the finish line. I thought I was almost done, and then my school loses accreditation. So then everything ended with that, and then I was like, you know what? Instead of being down and not moving on, I always wanted to get a PhD and do research on, medication errors. Because I noticed that there was an issue at the hospital I worked with where patients were dying because there was discrepancies between IT systems, like sending medication to the pharmacy, etc. So then I did my prerequisites. I got accepted into a PhD program, and my topic was just on strategies to mitigate information technology discrepancies in healthcare organizations. So that's just transferring of documents, medications, etc. to different hospitals, and then they're compatible. So then,
Basically, what was that?
okay.
Because
So, for instance, if you're coming from GW and you're trying to transfer your electronic health records.
Good.
I didn't
Okay.
want to summarize. They didn't teach me how to summarize when I did my defense. You were talking for like an hour, defending your research. So then I did that, and then I graduated, got a job at DoD, dealing with the same issues, helping military health, and then it evolved into me starting reducing business, which is kind of in line with what I did in my PhD, trying to help people to heal holistically and not just using medication. So that is my testimony in 3 minutes. I did 3 minutes, guys.
Thank you, Tosin. All right. Makiva, can you tell us about your journey? Try to keep it to...
I'm laughing because I wrote my journey on a paper, but I don't want to read because I'm up here, so hopefully I'll remember everything. So um, as PYem has already said, we work together. And so for us, our job is very competitive. And again, she's already stated that we're like, I think the only two African American women in that position in our bureau. So we do really everything. So last year for me was a period of questioning and busyness. The year before, in August of 2018, it was transition in my office. And I said, I actually told God, I was like, listen, I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to be around these people. They're getting on my nerves. So move me on. That was the deal. That's what I had told him when he transitioned me there. And I was like, oh, thank you, Lord. And then now I'm like, hey, let's move to the next thing. So in that discussion, I prayed on it. I had put out an application and things like that. And I was like, God, if this position I'm applying to that I think is perfect for me, if it's not for me, then keep me still. And the answer was, be still. And even I told him, keep me still, I was like, hold on, I really didn't know you were going to do that. But okay, so let's roll with this. So he kept me there in 2019, and because I was sitting still, he gave me lots of opportunities. But who knows that with opportunities come adversity. So while I was getting all these wonderful projects and things like that, I also had a lot of people who wanted the projects that I was given. So it was a lot of people who were like, well, I don't understand. She doesn't even know. We work in the field of HIV. My background is just totally public health. So I can transition anywhere. But their whole thing was, why is she getting all these top-notch projects? She's not really thorough in HIV and things of that nature. And so people were questioning me, which put me also in a questioning period. So I was putting my all into these projects and sucking up really some of my personal time. So I felt like disarray was happening. Even though I was thankful for the opportunity, I felt like something was off. I was giving so much to my job that it was really rolling over into my personal life. It became draining to me. It became just this constant stress that I was going through. And so, I started to take away from my family's time, my personal life, to do these projects and things like that. I started to take away from just doing things for me. And when I don't focus on myself, like my health takes a hit on that as well. So last summer, I was teaching at my church, and God gave me a word that I gave to my congregation, but he was talking to me. I was talking to my church and teaching them about living in the overflow, so getting to the abundant life that God has for you. And the one thing God pointed out to me, he reminded me that we are all vessels. And so vessels are containers. You either pour things into them or put things into them. And what God wanted me to recognize is that I was allowing some things that were not of him to be put in me. So it put me in a place where I was not connecting to him. I wasn't spending time with him. I was just not with him like I should be. So he he gave me that thought, and he told me, he's like, you're a vessel, and you're either going to receive my spirit and allow me to pour my spirit into you, or you're going to be collecting what is considered the garbage of the world. So when you're walking around, you take on other people's energy. You take on whatever garbage that they have. You either want the fruits of the spirit or you want the fruits of the flesh. And what God was showing me is like, Nakiva, you're feeding the flesh more than you're feeding my spirit. And that's why you're feeling this way. That's why you're drained. That's why you're unfocused. That's why your thoughts are cloudy. And so from that point, it just placed me in a position to talk to him and really pray to God and ask him, what is it that you want me to do? And his whole point to me was that I need you to clean house. And I need you to start with just you. You are the person that needs to be cleansed. It's not anyone around you that you want to direct and blame about the circumstances that you're in, about the tiredness that you feel, about the stress that you're feeling. It's just you. You don't have enough room in your spirit for me to pour more of myself in you. And so that's the process he has placed me in for this year. It's kind of like a reset to clean out some space, make some more room for him so that I can move that garbage out, that fruit of the flesh out, and put more more of the fruit of the Spirit in me. Because again, when I'm cleansed and I'm well, I'm able to put out the right energy to other people and really help the assignments that God has for me.
Clean out the mess. All right, Bimbo.
All right, so I am not a doctor. Feeling a little intimidated here with my.
That's okay. I'm not a doctor
master's
either.
degree.
I'm not a doctor either.
All right. I guess I'm here mostly to talk about my journey with relationships and courtships and how I was in this. I mean, being a Nigerian female who was in her later 20s and getting engaged to someone who wasn't a bad person, but we just weren't aligned as far as our core values. The process that it took me to make the decision to not just continue on into a marriage just to be married, and to actually look at the situation, evaluate it with all the fears that come with that kind of decision, all the opinions, all the judgment that comes with that kind of decision, the possibility of maybe never meeting anyone else in the future, being single for the rest of your life, just kind of evaluating that scenario and making a decision to end a courtship and almost marriage, an already public announced engagement, for a better option, which was to, you always have choices in life. And my journey with making that decision, how I was actually able to address it, and where the courage came from the kindness of God's love that, made me avoid getting into a situation that could have been much worse. I guess that's what I'm here to talk about, so.
Well, thank you. So you all have heard everyone's brief introduction. We're going to go into a few questions, but I also want to encourage you, if you have questions, we do have note cards. Any one of our hosts will come by. If you want to write your question down because you don't want to speak it out loud, that's fine. But if you also want to ask a question to any of the panelists, we do have a microphone in the center. Again, Tosin is speaking specifically on her academic journey, Makiva, professional career, and then Bimba, her relationships. And I think the one thing that each one of you pointed out was that there was a time that you were in a mess, or what you felt like was a mess. And you had to figure out how to get out of that mess. How did you identify what that mess was? What were some of the things that help you identify? And I'm asking this because sometimes you're in a situation and you don't even realize it's a mess that you're in. And I want us to be able to specifically talk about practical ways that you were able to identify your mess. And any one of you can start off.
All right, so I can start. So my husband is wonderful, but he knows when I'm getting into mess or I'm becoming messy. So I would come home and immediately I would go into complaining. I love my work, but God could have me do that work anywhere else. And so I would come home and specifically just start complaining about everything. God has given me so much, but I would immediately go into complaining. Like, I'm tired. These people are getting on my nerves. It's so much work that I have to do. It's piling up on my desk. I'm feeling imbalanced. And he would notice that, and he can see the change in me, like my attitude. And he knew that he was just like, I think you're sitting in a toxic position, and that toxicity, you're carrying it here. And then I noticed also that even my behavior, if I started to do things differently or say things differently, I can also check when my children are picking up on that as well. So my daughter is always my checkpoint for when I'm doing the most. She came into my home office one day and she was like, "Hey, Mommy, I wanted us to do such and such tonight." And she was like, "But I see that you're busy already, so we can pick this up tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, hold on. Why am I busy at like 10 o'clock at night and it has nothing to do with you all?" That's a no for me. So immediately that's a checkpoint for me because my family has permanent space in my life. Other things don't. So my mindset is to never give permanent space to temporary things. So that's how I
I
have
think
to
I
look
need you
at
to
it.
say that again. Say that just one more time. One more time.
Don't give permanent space to temporary things. And I'm not saying that, my the work that God has for me at work is temporary, but he, again, is where he has you for that season. So don't get so enthralled in it and wrapped up in it that you think this is the end point for you. This is not the end. This is part of the journey. So I don't want you to get stuck here and get so consumed by what is going on the outside. God was like, I need you to stay checked in and plugged in to me, and I'm going to lead you through this journey. So
Thank you.
I guess how I realized that it was a situation I shouldn't be in. For me, when I started dating that individual, I was in a very weird space spiritually. It was good, but I was like hyper spiritual, like new born again Christian type of space where I wasn't pairing it with wisdom. So I felt like I heard God say, this is the person you're supposed to be with. And I was in a very interesting journey with God, and I enjoyed that journey, but it wasn't mature in my thought process. So I jumped into the relationship because I felt something spiritually telling me that this was the person. So I didn't even know it was a messy situation so I didn't get to know the person. I didn't know anything about our core values. I didn't know anything. And again, it wasn't an obvious mess because this wasn't a bad person. And obviously, I'm not a bad person. It was just not a good situation together. So it wasn't until I started getting to know the person after making this kind of rash commitment that I started discovering that this is possibly not where you should be. Like, you guys are clashing on not just minor issues, but like things that are very important to you, things that are very important to him, core issues. And that if you don't course correct, like the Bible says, the prudent, you evaluate your situation and then you course correct. The simple-minded, you evaluate the situation and you keep going. The difference between a wise person and a foolish person, you both evaluate the situation. But the courage to actually make the decision to back out of something that could really be, the person you get married to is such a crucial decision. So when I started noticing that we were clashing on many core issues, there was the whole things will change. It's just the circumstance that he's in, the circumstance that you're in. This isn't a bad situation. It's still good. You should still keep going. You heard from God. God told you. So it was my journey with God and really going back to him and speaking with him and asking him and questioning him. Like, I feel like this is where you want me, but did I not pair that decision with wisdom? And are there other things that I should be thinking about when making a decision of who to spend my life with? And as I journeyed with him, continued talking to him about it, it became more and more obvious that if I continue in this relationship, for all the fears and all the reasons to just go ahead and get married, if I didn't course correct, it would be a foolish decision. And it was my conversations with him that made it clearer to me that this wasn't where I should be. That's when I realized that it was a mess to be addressed.
Okay.
Did you like that?
I just want to follow up with a question. You said that you didn't really know him that well before you got engaged.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what you said or did that prompted this man to give you an engagement ring. I don't know how long the courtship was, but what was the driving force? Were you just all that in a bag of chips? Was he like, you are all that in a bag of chips, but what prompted that? And in retrospect, what could you have done differently to kind of slow that down or prevent that from happening, if possible?
Yeah, I think, like I said, he's a very spiritual person. I'm very in love with God. So in that space that I was spiritually, just feeling like I heard God tell me, like, this is the person you're supposed to be with, he kind of has, and again, he's not a bad person. We just have very different perspectives of faith and God and how that pairs with wisdom and hard work and life. And he was born and raised in Nigeria. I don't know if that gives you guys any sort of context for the kind of, spirituality. So it's not bad, but it would have been very, very challenging. So I feel like when we both met, we were both in that spiritual space it was like spirituality not paired with wisdom, not paired with understanding, not paired with like the Holy Spirit's leading, and like, you know, when you read the Bible and things jump at you. So I feel like we just weren't mature enough to know that we should not have. So it was like almost when we started dating, which we didn't know each other, it was already like, this is it type of stuff. So that's what I would have done differently. All of that, God speaks. I'm not saying he doesn't, but when you're making a decision of who to marry, you should be getting to know the person, your values, because your backgrounds play a huge difference. Your ideas of who God is plays a huge difference. Your idea of what it means to be a Christian like there are a lot of things that come into play, and you're just taking this I'm a new creation without really evaluating all the things that made the person who they are, and vice versa, him for me as well.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, you touched on something that's very important, is that he's not a bad person. And I do think that you can be with the right person. He wasn't the right person, because the person you're married to right now is the right person.
100.
But you can be with the right person, and it can be the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting to know each other, if you're very immature and you're rushing into something, the two of you haven't developed to a point where you can see beyond the right now.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing the future. So I'm happy you addressed that. Thank you for sharing that. Tosin, how did you identify, you know, your mess? I mean, outside of this program not being accredited, but what else helped you identify the mess? And I want you to touch on this specifically for our college students. I think a lot of times people are in spaces and they think they're doing the right thing. They think that everything is in place, and they're still just trying to figure it out.
So I just want to start off first with saying that one thing I learned this year is that God always answers prayers, but the answer is not always yes. Sometimes it's no, because before I used to be like, God isn't answering my prayer, it has to be yes. He's answering your prayer, no is also an answer as well. Okay, so I'm starting off with that because a lot of times I would do a degree or a major because it was the trend. Like, for instance, the physician assistant program was the trend. My mentor told me to do it. He thought that's what I needed, but that's not what you need is not really what could be meant for you, or what you think that someone is telling you to do is not really what is meant for you. So I decided there was a church announcement for the Daniel Leadership Institute Young Professionals Mentorship Program, and they have an individual development plan where you have to write out your list of your goals for the next 5 years. So when I wrote down all my goals for the next 5 years, I believe my mentor at the time was Femi Olumoko. I don't know if he's here today, or his wife. But thank you for that. He addressed the mess. He was like, this is a mess. He didn't say it like that, but he was like, you want to do this and this degree and like, what is your goal? Like, what do you really want to do? So then when I realized, okay, I need to actually start writing down my plan, because you can have a plan, but if you don't have a goal without a plan, it's just a dream. So for me, I started writing things down. Okay, this is every step of the day. This is what I need to write down in order to get to my goal. So in the beginning of the year, you can have a New Year's resolution and say, okay, I want to pass my PMP exam. And then you say that you have to give yourself a deadline. Okay, I'm going to pass this PMP exam by March 25th. But then you have to break it down to even smaller goals. Okay, if I read 9 pages a day, that's easier. You make the goal easier. If I read 9 pages a day by March 25th or May 25th, I'll reach this goal. But how is this goal helping me? Am I getting this certification because everybody else is getting it? Or is this my passion? Is this my purpose? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? So I was able to address the mess by writing things down, and I still incorporate it to my practice today. And if it doesn't make sense, my husband is my accountability partner. That's Aya right there. Hey, shout out. I always have to present to him beginning of the year. You can do it to your friend, your friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, or your accountability friend, or what is it, confidant. Beginning of the year, write down your goals. And make it specific, not just high level. Make it granular. What am I going to do every single day to reach that goal? And then present it to somebody, have somebody that's accountable. So my husband, he's very, very critical in a good way, where he's going to look at the goals and be like, does this make sense? Okay, so explain to me, how is this certification or how is this plan that you're going to do going to get you to the next level? And if it doesn't make sense, then we talk, we revamp, etc. So I was able to address the mess to answer your question by just writing everything down. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2, write the vision and make it plain.
Okay. Great. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. If you have questions, please don't be shy. Just walk up to the center, or you can write it on a notepad. You guys did a great job summarizing all of that. Were there any barriers? Because identifying the mess, knowing where you want to be is great. But along the way, sometimes there are things that kind of set you back or make you question your decision. Are you sure you want to give that ring back? Did you give the ring back? Did you keep the ring for yourself? You don't have to answer. But, you know, some of those things that you really can sway your opinion or your decision one way or another. What barriers did you guys have to go through?
100%. Barriers all the time, and like constantly rethinking, okay, I thought I heard you before. Now, is this really you? Like, it's confusing to try to figure out the voice of God and the practical thing to do and all of that. So in trying to reevaluate the situation I was in, of course, public opinion. I would be joking to say that it didn't matter because this was Instagram announced engagement, relationship. So what would people think of me that I'm ending an almost marriage? What will they have to say about the fact that will they have opinions that there's something wrong with me? The fact that I didn't finish something that I started, or so public opinion, people's thoughts about me, and then also he had made a lot of changes in his life with the expectation of being with me, so I felt bad and guilty, like should I just go forward with it because, you know, he's gonna be hurt, you're such a bad person, you're ending something, someone has already made plans to be in a marriage with you, so should I just go forward with this marriage? Will that be easier than hurting him and then his family, his friends? What will they think of me? Just pretty much the biggest problem, the two biggest barriers for me was wondering if I was hearing God correctly this time, since I thought I heard him the first time. So it's like, now that I feel like this is the wrong thing, it's like, it's easier to just go forward with it. But I just couldn't do that. So public opinion, wondering if it was really God, and also the very real fear that if I end this, I might not find anyone again, and I might be single for the rest of my life. So having to come to reality with that and know that that is 100% a better option than being in a marriage with someone who you're not supposed to be with. But I can say that now, but all those thoughts kept coming back and forth, and it's like, okay, you have to end this. Oh, but this, but that, but this, but that. So there are like 1,000,001 different reasons why I could have, quite frankly, gone forward with it. I feel like that would have been less of a struggle. But I did go through a lot of personal growth by shooting those barriers down and just deciding who I am, what I'm doing, what God is saying, and moving forward with that. So.
Any questions from the audience? No? Okay. Barriers, any type of barriers?
I would actually just say the biggest barrier for me is just me. You know, oftentimes we put out there plans and decisions that we have, but you are saying yes twice. Your first yes to the decision that you made is just your agreement that the decision that you made sense. Your second yes is your actual steps to being committed to the first yes that you agreed to. So if you don't get to the second yes, what you really said to yourself is no. So you gotta do both yeses. And for me, it was making that transition to the second yes, the real commitment, the steps, the action behind the words that I've said out of my mouth. Like, and it's the same thing that we do when we are trying to, I'm just gonna go with lose weight because that's something all of us are, you know, think through if we're trying to get healthy. It's the two yeses you say. You say, hey, I have a goal of losing 5 pounds. And yes, does this make sense? Yes, I need to lose 5 pounds. The next one is, are you going to do something about losing the 5 pounds? If you don't take any action, whether it's, I'm just gonna walk daily for 15 minutes, or I'm gonna lift weights, 10 minutes a day or whatever. If you don't say yes to that one where the actual work begins, then your first yes means absolutely nothing. It's a no. So that's the barrier that I had to get to, is going from the first yes to the second one, because the second yes is my real commitment.
All right. I see some questions coming in, but I'm going to just ask a few other questions before I get those. Do you all have any regrets as far as the decisions that you made to get out of that mess? Were there any regrets as far as how you approached your decision or moving forward, what you did or did not do, what you could have done better? And I'm asking you this because I want it to be a teachable moment so that people understand that through the journey, you do have to make 2 yeses. You are going to have barriers, but there are always options about how you can approach a situation. And if you don't, that's okay too.
I'll go. For me, one regret I do have is, but I realized that God's timing is what He had for me, where I am today. But one thing that I wish I had was a mentor that can, or someone I can shadow before starting undergrad, because I believe my mess started after high school, because I didn't have like a role model or mentor or somebody in the field where I looked up to, so that I can know, okay, these are the classes I need to take to finish my degree in a certain amount of time, so I'm not just swimming through the university, changing my major 5 times. However, if I were to do everything differently, besides that, I would keep it the same way, because even with all the degrees, it just came full circle, because I feel like I'm using everything. I'm using my business degree to run my business, like the skills I learned there, my healthcare background, to help clients, with, nutrition plans, etc. So I feel like even though you may feel like you're wasting your time, or if you change your major a lot of times, you'll actually end up using each of those degrees or have each of those experiences in one way or the other.
That's great. But you don't have to have 7 degrees.
You don't have to have
you can do it in 2. You can do it in 2. All right, the first question.
Hello, I have a question. Sorry. Hello. Okay. This is for Dr. O. When you were reading her bio, you mentioned that she has all these degrees and did it without student loans. Do you mind sharing, because I think there are a lot of people here who are in school and things like that, how you're able to, it doesn't have to be all, but how you're able to do it without student loans?
Okay, so at the Ohio State, there was 5% Black people, so they were begging for diversity. So, hey, opportunist. So I, went to the school. I was able to get a past scholar, and then I ran track for 2 years. So the first 2 years I ran track, but then I was like, okay, it's taking me forever to graduate. I'm going to do academics. So Ohio State didn't really owe anything. Then for the master's program, I was actually working at the school. So if you work at the school or your school, you can either get discounted rate, or you can get full tuition. However, I actually lost my job like my second year while I was getting my master's program paid for. So I actually had to take a student loan. I'll tell you how I was able to not have student loans after getting that loan. Okay, so then for the PhD program, your job as well, if your field that you're studying is related to the job, or you can defend it and tweak it in a way where it relates to the job, they'll also pay either some or all of the fees as well. So then, okay, now how do I have $0 student loan? So at the gym, so this is why it's good to be nice all the time and network with everybody, no matter where you are. I met a lady, and she has a PhD, and she was like, oh my God, I don't have any student loans. I was like, oh, you're rich, or you were able to pay for it, or you had a full ride all through. She's like, no, if you're teaching, there's actually a way that you can have loan forgiveness where you pay $0 a month for 10 years, and that's it. And all you have to do is teach. Or you can do like a service program where you work somewhere where nobody likes to work, like a public service, or some type of job like that, and then they'll pay for it. So for me, I teach at Princeton Review. So I teach healthcare administration and business law, so I pay $0 a month, and it's going to be $0 a month for 10 years, and that's how I have no student loans.
And if you want more details about it, you can talk to.
And there'll be a fee because this year I'm not doing anything for free.
She'll charge a consulting fee.
That's part of your
Just tell her
plan,
you
that
want
you
the Candid Conversation discount, and she'll give you a percentage off. That was actually one of the questions. Time is running out, so I'm just going to ask two final questions. The first question is, can you be more specific about the barrier that deterred you from the engagement? How can you now choose your partner through growth?
Okay. Yeah, so I feel like that whole experience really did help me grow with God, like 100%, and started to clarify to me what I wanted the right time around if it did happen. So the question was to clarify the barrier. Sorry.
The question is to clarify the barrier that deterred you from the engagement. So I think what this person is asking, like, what exactly made you decide that this person is not for you? And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. You were learning more about the person.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a bad person because I kind of know him too.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't the right person for her.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to think that every man you meet or every woman you meet in church is a person for you, right? You can still be unequally yoked with someone who is also a Christian. And I think people think unequally yoked means we're from two different backgrounds or two different religions or two different denominations. You can be in the same church, listening to the same preacher, and be unequally yoked because your beliefs are different from the other person you're with.
Yeah.
I think,
that's,
is that okay?
That's it, yeah.
All right. Sorry,
Did that answer the question?
I think
Hopefully?
so. I think so. So this is the final question, and maybe I can combine them. This person said, how do you, and I think this is for Makiba, how do you differentiate between a mess or a situation you need to work on from a situation you need to get out of? Especially because nothing good comes easy, but when do you know when to stop trying? And I guess everybody can answer this, but Makiba, I'd like you to talk about this.
Right. So I go right back to the definition of what a mess is. It is like a situation that is untidy, or a situation where you're feeling like there is just a lot of difficulties in there. So sometimes God puts you in situations because he is trying to grow something out of you. He's trying to grow a skill or something out of you, and putting you in this situation is going to help you. So sometimes those situations, yes, it's not a mess, but it's stuff that you just have to deal with, and that's when he's, again, asking you to check into him and pray more to him. You may have to go through a period of fasting. I do that when I'm in a period of disarray. I immediately think to myself, I need to be fasting and really checking into God a little bit more. When you are in a seriously messy situation, you will be able to tell nothing is in order. It is a high level of disorganization. It'll start with clutter up here. You won't be able to retain a thought. And all of us are intelligent people, but you won't be able to retain the simplest of thoughts because there's so much busyness going on up in here. Additionally, you'll start to see your outside just get out of order. Like it's not the way that will help you function. So I looked at even my house. I was like, it's a lot of stuff in here. I don't even know how it got here. And I would ask my husband, did we order this? And why is it still sitting here? And it's because you haven't, your time has been sucked up doing something else that we haven't gotten to this. So that's why you've seen this box here for 3 months. When we ordered it in April, it's still here in July. It's like, oh my gosh. So it's your mind gets cluttered, your thoughts get cluttered, your area gets cluttered. That means that things are blocking you. So the mess is now, it comes from a mental state and then it's projected out in a physical state as well. Your health will even start to deteriorate. My doctor was seeing me way too much. And it will start to question why are you here again? And my mother can even see it. She'll, like, I have very bad eczema, so when my stress level is up, my neck breaks out. My mother she'll notice, and she's like, what is going on with you? My migraines will come up. So you can tell, like, I'm in a messy situation. I need to get all the way out because I am deteriorating. And if I don't get out soon enough, I don't know what will happen to me. So you can tell when you are in a straight up mess versus I'm just in a difficult situation that God is wanting me to learn from.
Yeah, and I think, this varies from person to person. If you're a messy person, having a messy house is not going to be a sign for you, right? Because you like mess. But if you're not, and what you said is so true. I remember when I was single, anytime my house was a mess and PYem would come over, he would be like, what's going on? Because I didn't have the space or the capacity to do anything. Dishes would be in the sink. Things would just be all over the place. So I'm glad you addressed that.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yes.
Yeah,
really
I feel like also the more, and that's why it's important for single people, even when you're married, to get to know yourself. Because I feel like the more you know yourself, the more you'll be able to identify this is not a situation I should be in. Because there's some obvious things that you shouldn't be taking. Like if there's abuse in your relationship, that's obviously a message to get out of. But when it's like, this is a good person, I'm a good person, maybe this is it's just me. I'm just too sensitive about certain things. I just need to, grow up. I need to do this, and I need to just stay here. And this is, But the more you know yourself, the more you know what you want your future to be, the more you identify things that are important to you, your values. I feel like the more you be able to identify in a person, even before you start dating or while you're in courtship, that this is not right for me. Mm-hmm. It will not work.
Yeah.
It's too much.
And good people are always hard to break up with, but it is what it is. I'm sorry. All right. These questions, I'm going to try to address it really quickly because we're wrapping up. How do you know when God is talking to you? Do you listen, or do you listen to your heart, soul, and mind? You know God is talking to you when you know his voice. And I think PYem talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Understanding what God's voice is for you. God will speak to you in different ways, through the word, through a message, through somebody saying something. You know it's God when you understand and you're sensitive to his voice. And if you don't know his voice, you have to go through the journey of discovering what his voice is. Okay? I don't know who asked that, but I hope I answered it. While addressing the mess, how do you deal with burnout, especially when it seems nothing is changing? For that, I think you need to have goals, as they've mentioned already. Establish some goals so you know that you're not in this messy situation for 6 years. If you're feeling the same way for an extended period of time and you know what your capacity is, you need to do a check-in. Reevaluate what you're going through. As difficult as it may be a relationship, it may be school, it may be a place of work. Make sure that you are not losing yourself in this situation. When you start to lose yourself and it prolongs longer than what's healthy, that's when you need to start checking out the whole situation and considering getting out of it. I do want to know, I didn't say this earlier, this is not a women's empowerment panel. I did have a gentleman that was supposed to be on the panel, but he wasn't able to make it. So don't worry, I promise you the next Candid conversation will have some base on the panel. Lastly, I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. What we try to do is bring what we've learned to the forefront and help you apply it to your everyday life. Of course, this is Candid Conversation. We do have a YouTube page. Please follow us on YouTube. It's Candid Conversations TV, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Leave comments, give me feedback. If you think the panel should have been more open or more closed, I think they were excellent. But if you have feedback, please let us know. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you were blessed and have a blessed day. Thank you.